So Donald Trump has not agreed to a single debate in this cycle. If he is such a dominant candidate in this race, what is he so afraid of?
Well, there's no advantage for him to do a debate because he's so far ahead. And probably he's using the same philosophy that Joe Biden is using.
It is becoming more and more apparent every single day that CNN is just not sending their best people. They are incapable of having any real conversations about any issues that actually matter, so they fixate on nonsense. And their new host, or are they new? Their relatively new hosts that they're bringing to the table are just not ready to have these conversations. Now, let's start with Abby Phillips. She shows up and tries to take on Ben Carson because Donald Trump won't have debates with his political opponents who he is blowing out of the water. Now, would I like to see those debates? Sure. But Ben Carson points out Democrats aren't having those debates either.
So Donald Trump has not agreed to a single debate in this cycle. If he is such a dominant candidate in this race, what is he so afraid of?
Well, there's no advantage for him to do a debate because he's so far ahead. And probably he's using the same philosophy that Joe Biden is using.
But Nikki Haley is now set to have a strong performance in New Hampshire after she finished third, a close third in Iowa. How is that not a race, a real threat to Trump's quest for the nomination? It's so early in this process.
Well, if you want to look at something that's interesting, look historically at Iowa. No one has ever had more than 50% of the vote. In fact, the largest margin before has been 12%.
You mentioned Joe Biden. Joe Biden participated in presidential nominating contests as well.
I didn't see him in this cycle participating in any debates. If it's not advantageous to you, there's no particular reason to do it.
Now, you may have noticed a cut in that little clip there, and there's a reason for it. That reason is because it took her about 2 minutes to figure out a way to actually come back and say, well, Joe Biden isn't actually doing the same thing Donald Trump is doing, when in fact Joe Biden is doing the exact same thing that Donald Trump is doing. He made it very clear that he would not debate RFK. He also will not debate Dean Phillips, a congressman from Minnesota, who is running for president of the United States. And in some places, they're completely ending Democratic primaries so they don't have to deal with this because Joe Biden can't get out there and make this happen. But here they are trying to make this argument that Donald Trump is a coward because he won't go into a debate with Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. And again, would I like to see that debate? I absolutely would. But I'm a realist. What does he have to gain from doing so? And the answer there is nothing. But these folks at CNN, they have their agenda they have to push. And, Abby Phillips isn't the only one. No. There's another one, too. Laura Coates, another new CNN employee, tried to take on Ralph Norman, a congressman from South Carolina. And in that conversation, first, she called him Ralph Northam. Now, you may know this as the guy that says, oh, we'll have the baby and then we'll decide what to do with it, whether to kill it. Later, she called him by the wrong name, and when called out for it, she denied it. But I think it's pretty clear what actually happened here.
Nikki Haley raising some eyebrows after claiming the U.S. has never been a racist country. Her campaign letter affirming her statement later on, also saying in part, quote, America has always had racism, but America has never been a racist country, unquote. Joining us now, Congressman Ralph Northam of South Carolina. He has endorsed Nikki Haley for president. Congressman, thank you so much for being here this evening. Of course, this particular statement that has been made is catching a lot of attention. There's been a number of comments made about race and history for the former governor of South Carolina. Here it comes again. Do you believe that the U.S. has never been a racist country?
First of all, it's Norman, Ralph Norman. Northam is, I think he's in Virginia.
My diction may have been off. My father's name is Norman. I'm sure I said it right, but maybe it didn't translate there, but I certainly know your name. But go ahead and answer my question. Thank you so much.
Well,
they'll witness this where she can't own that she made a mistake and just say, oh, my mistake, and that'd be the end of it. She pretended she didn't do that, but she absolutely did, and this is not the only time she did this in this conversation. She wanted to have a conversation, her whole plan was to have a conversation about Nikki Haley saying we're not a racist country. And she tries to make the argument that historians believe that, yes, we are a racist country, and the Civil War was about a bunch of different other things, which is very weird because in the past we've been told that the Civil War was all about slavery, and now we're told that it's not, depending on what the conversation they want to have at that particular moment is. And now we're trying to be having the argument that America is a racist country and will always be a racist country. And I think Ralph Norman makes a pretty good point here. The congressman from South Carolina says, look, we have issues. We'll always have issues. There's no question about that. But America itself, the institution of America, is not racist. And this argument that the media tries to make over and over again is kind of silly. But that will not stop Laura Coates. She cannot go beyond what her script says, so she has to continue making the same argument. Check this out.
No, Laura, Nikki is exactly right. Look, in the Declaration of Independence, the preamble, which said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The Civil War was fought 74 years after the Constitution was ratified in 1787. So there was a faction of southern states that had slaves, but the country as a whole has never been a racism or never had, had certain parts of it, but the Civil War was fought because the Southerners had slaves, and Abraham Lincoln, as a country, wanted to hold it together based on the Declaration of Independence. So she is exactly right on that.
Well, historians, and likely all of them, would disagree with the assertion that you've made about this being a singular reason for Lincoln's motivation in the Civil War. Some have looked at it for the economic reasons. Others looked at it, obviously, for the fact that the economic labor force was, in fact, a people in servitude. But let me ask you a broader question here, because this question continues to come up, and I think it's because the conversation has not yet led to a definitive statement that acknowledges, on the one hand, historical truth, on the other hand, a way to address it in contemporary times. When you look at the reason people are asking the question, it's not for a gotcha, Congressman. It's because I think they're trying to understand what policies would be in play to address some of the historical wrongs. What policies ought there to be?
Look, Laura, you know, you and the media want to try to, y'all beat this horse over so many times to focus on something that happened, like I said, the Civil War was fought 74 years after the Constitution. That group were racist, that particular group. But you can't cast a country as that. So I would take issue with the fact that historically I'm wrong. I think I'm right. And plus, Nikki Haley, as she's often said, growing up, she wasn't black, she wasn't white. And if anybody could say, if there was racism, she could say that she was a victim of it, but it wasn't. We're a great country with great people that love freedom. And the press can try to parse her words all day long. She's going to take this stance, as well as most Americans are worried about the economy. They're worried about a border that's out of control, crime, and so many other things that she is addressing, not to beat up something that happened, 160 years ago. It's not right, and it's not productive.
Again, total embarrassment for the network. It's unfortunate for them. And I'm hoping that one day they'll be able to figure out what an embarrassment this is and maybe change tacks here. But that doesn't really seem like what they want to do. They want to have these conversations every day. They want to have these dumb fights, even if it makes their employees look dumb. Again, they're not sending their best people. And I got to give these guys credit for going in there and putting these people on their heels and showing them that you're not going to take it. Don't back down from these questions. Go into these arenas and fight. And if you fight these people, they are not equipped to win because the facts are not on their side.